We Plus Network vi dà un calorosissimo augurio di buon Natale, di felice anno nuovo, perché quest'anno veramente ce lo meritiamo e speriamo che il prossimo anno sia qualcosa di diverso, qualcosa di ancora nuovo, quel next normal al quale tutti stiamo aspirando. Ma più che next normal, io amerei definirlo un better normal, nel senso che ci fa molto piacere sperare che qualcosa possa migliorare anche nelle nostre vite e che questa pandemia ci abbia insegnato qualcosa. Allora, siamo qui quindi per il nostro appuntamento abituale, un reading al mese, non può mancare. Quest'anno abbiamo fatto anche un paio di reading al mese, questi piccoli momenti in cui ci si ritrova non davanti a un caminetto, ma in questo momento davanti a uno schermo a leggere un libro. E ciascuno di noi nell'anno si alternano 12-14 persone, ci propone un libro che ha letto e che gli ha insegnato qualcosa di molto importante. Allora, noi lo animiamo come We Plus Network. Chi siamo come We Plus Network? Siamo una rete di coach, una compagnia, un'azienda che da 7 anni fa coaching e promuove la cultura del business coaching in Italia. Come nave ammiraglia, io amo chiamarla così, c'è il Business Coaching Lab, ovvero il nostro percorso per diventare coach professionisti. A questo punto abbiamo fatto, qui c'è scritto 14 edizioni, ma in realtà ce ne sono ancora altre 3, nel senso che siamo andati molto avanti su questo terreno in questi ultimi mesi e abbiamo proposte per clienti, abbiamo un network di membri molto nutrito che ci porta know-how, col quale scambiamo molte informazioni, molta professionalità e con il quale facciamo offerte per aziende, per istituzioni, per organizzazioni in generale. Compiamo i 7 anni quest'anno e questo ci rende quasi, non maggiorenni, ma insomma si avvicinano forse le scuole medie, insomma, la scuola comincia a farsi ancora un pochino più complessa. Siamo questi e abbiamo fatto tanti reading, adesso è il momento finale dell'anno. Quest'anno, vedete, il nostro palinsesto è un po' old economy, Milano-Roma. In realtà da marzo praticamente abbiamo messo tutto assieme e abbiamo fatto reading via web, un grande cambiamento di quest'anno, e che però ci ha permesso di raggiungere anche un pubblico molto, molto più vasto e di questo sono quelle opportunità che poi la tecnologia permette. Oggi siamo con appunto Marc e vedremo il suo libro che parla appunto di coaching on the axis, ovvero l'asse del coaching, l'asse del business coaching, ma poi lui ci spiegherà meglio. Siamo arrivati al reading numero 65, quindi i 7 anni sono stati molto utili da questo punto di vista e noi abbiamo proprio la fortuna e la possibilità di avere costruito veramente un patrimonio di know-how particolarmente interessante che si sta man mano trasferendo nelle nostre offerte. Questa è proprio una nostra caratteristica, il fatto di basare le offerte, le metodologie, gli strumenti sugli ultimi testi e sulle ultime ricerche scientifiche a disposizione, proprio per fare una offerta che possa essere solida, veramente giusta per le aziende e che possiamo appunto radicare nel know-how contemporaneo. Ecco qui due progetti che sono di particolare successo. Vedo che c'è con noi Federica Setti, una delle fondatrici anche di We Plus Network. Ci vuoi illustrare, Federica, appunto questo slancio che ha preso la nostra nave ammiraglia, il Business Coaching Lab?
Sì, molto brevemente, poi magari per chi fosse interessato approfondiamo in un'altra sede. Mi piace l'idea del passare dalle elementari alle medie, nel senso che il nostro Business Coaching Lab è in realtà un percorso immaginato per essere un'introduzione al coaching, soprattutto coaching delle organizzazioni. La novità è che l'abbiamo rivisto in termini di format e quindi da un percorso che era completamente in presenza è stato trasformato negli ultimi mesi in un percorso anche completamente online. Come vedete, queste sono le edizioni che sono in programma nei prossimi mesi, 2 già chiuse, la terza è diciamo in popolamento veloce. In realtà la nostra speranza è quella di poter ritornare anche a fare delle cose anche in presenza, quindi in un format che sarà misto per presenza e online a partire dall'autunno dell'anno prossimo. Come scuola, quando dicevo parlare
E
di
poi
medie,
altre iniziative.
esatto, no? Quando parlavo delle medie è perché in realtà la nostra offerta si sta molto arricchendo di alcuni aspetti che possono essere interessanti per chi già è coach e quindi è un po' più senior o comunque ha una base abbastanza strutturata. Prossime iniziative saranno con la Strozzi Institute, una famosa scuola californiana nota diciamo a livello internazionale per diciamo questo approccio all'uso del corpo, del body come consapevolezza e come trasformazione, che dovrebbero venire a fare un corso qui residenziale a luglio. Dico dovrebbero perché tutti dobbiamo usare il condizionale. Stiamo immaginando che forse la data giusta sarà ottobre, quindi qua vedete luglio, ma è molto probabile che andremo su ottobre. Come altro corso, chiaramente riproporremo a brevissimo invece la quarta edizione della formazione sull'approccio al coaching, al team coaching sistemico. Già grande successo negli anni passati, ci siamo interrotti in termini di calendario perché è un corso che invece riteniamo che vada fatto in presenza, quindi ottimisticamente immaginiamo che a giugno si possa fare una prossima edizione. In questo senso, chiaramente, come dire, perché mi piaceva la metafora della scuola media? Perché queste sono tutte offerte, oltretutto realizzate da noi ma con partnership internazionali, perché ci piace avere questa apertura verso chi magari è anche leader, no? nel settore di riferimento, ma soprattutto ci consente anche di mantenere il passo con quelle che sono delle stimolazioni un po' moderne. Purtroppo spesso all'interno del contesto italiano si sentono un po' le stesse cose, quindi quello che a noi piace è invece di andare un po' a curiosare in giro, quindi di portare anche qui, anche per noi, sperimentando anche nella traduzione, per chi poi alla fine non fosse in grado di partecipare completamente in lingua inglese, ma confrontandosi con professionisti di stampo e di calibro internazionale. Quindi questo è sostanzialmente della scuola.
Qui la cosa molto interessante di questo corso, appunto Systemic Team Coaching, che ci traghetta un po' anche verso l'intervento di Marc, è il fatto che appunto c'è un approccio di tipo sistemico, no? Voi sapete che in questo momento l'approccio sistemico è uno degli approcci che maggiormente sta interessando le grandi organizzazioni e a livello globale, proprio perché l'aspetto sistemico si rivolge alle varie unità di analisi che noi possiamo adottare rispetto a un mondo aziendale, no? E quindi se l'individual coaching si riferiva agli individui, no? E quindi vedeva come unità di riferimento l'individual, già il business coaching comincia a avere come propria unità di riferimento la persona all'interno della sua azienda, no? E il team coaching vede come unità di riferimento proprio invece l'azienda, no? E quindi il team come nucleo essenziale di analisi dell'efficacia organizzativa, no? E questo è molto, molto vicino al pensiero di Marc, proprio perché vede la complessità delle interazioni, no? Si focalizza sulle relazioni, no? Questo è uno degli elementi importanti che rende, diciamo, anche la nostra offerta, anche come offerta di business coaching, un'offerta che è molto vicino al testo di Marc Kahn, appunto, Coaching on the Axis. Perfetto, allora I shift to English. At this point I shift to English, and here we are. Here we are. We are waiting for this wonderful consultant and manager. His name is Marc Kahn. And I would like to introduce you to Marc, who has a fantastic track record in the business arena. He's global head of people and organization at a financial company. But that's not enough. He's a visiting professor at Middlesex University. You know, Middlesex University is one of the universities that mostly developed the area of business coaching. So Marc is one of the gurus of business coaching with a solid background in the scientific community. Here he is. I see that Marc is connecting, and I would also suggest that Marc is a clinical psychologist. So you see how many facets of his education and of his training. He has a lot to teach us. And of course, Marc is one of the most famous business coaches that we have today. So it's a real pleasure and honor to have him here today with us. I think that he is connected. So please, Marc, if you are there, just wave your hand and switch on your video.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me? And can you see me?
Oh, wonderful. It's perfect, Marc. It's so great to have you here. I was just introducing yourself right now. So, Marc, we are here, and I introduce you. Would you like to add something to what I read on your here on this short resume that you sent us?
No, I did hear you. Thank you very much. It's very kind. I feel like I have a very big head when you speak to me. But then my wife talks to me and I come down to the ground and I understand.
Okay. That's great. So Marc is going to introduce us with this book here. And this has been a bestseller in business coaching. And Marc, we are willing to translate it in Italian because we want to make it available to the general public here in Italy.
Yes, we're working on that, and hopefully it'll be in Italian in some time. There's discussions with the publisher around that, but unfortunately at the moment it's only in English. I apologize.
I see. So coaching on the axis, here we are. Here you told us the use and misuse of coaching in the business context. I think that coaching on the axis is a lot focused on this type of concept. So can you tell us something about this?
So firstly, thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to some interaction with you. I just will maybe begin with a little bit of an explanation of how I came to write the book, because I think sometimes when you read a book, it's you don't get to hear how the book came to be. And in this case, that is not only perhaps just interesting to hear that from the author, but it is also important in understanding the message of the book, because how I came to write the book and the message in the book are connected like this. So just a little bit about myself. I began a career as a clinical psychologist about 25 years ago. That's how I started, and I had a private practice. I focused on psychotherapy, and I worked a little bit in a hospital, and I began in the medical model. And I think you will see that that's very important in terms of the constructs in the message. Quite soon after that, I moved into working with people who were in conflict in the workplace. And it happened by chance. So there were two things that came together there. On the one hand, I was working as a psychologist, doing some medico-legal work, which is working with lawyers to assess individuals that were in a legal situation. And sometimes the lawyers would ask me to help them mediate issues between clients of the firm of attorneys. And on the other hand, I would be asked sometimes by people in small businesses and the like to come and mediate conflict between people in businesses. But my primary work was as a clinical psychologist. Mm-hmm. This was before, this is in the 1990s, late 1990s, before coaching, the way that we know coaching today, was really appreciated or understood. And at that time, if you said coaching, people thought that you meant sports coaching. Mm-hmm. And I myself, to be honest, I'll own up and confess, I also thought that. And one day somebody said to me about 20 years ago, they said, did you hear about this thing called coaching? I think this is a little bit of what maybe you are doing. And I said, no, I don't do that. I don't know what that is. I'm a psychologist and I work in the medical model, but I also work a little bit in business. And very soon after that, the coaching became more and more, present in the world of work, and more people started to want to use the service. And one day I was working with an executive team, and this is a true story actually, so I'm a little bit of a true story. I was working with an executive team, and I never thought of myself as a coach. It was probably in about 2001, 2002, mm-hmm. somewhere around there. And after working with this team, it was quite a big multinational company. Maybe a week later, I got a phone call from Boston, a company in Boston in the United States, an American fellow, and he phoned me on my mobile phone. He said, are you Marc Kahn? I said, yes. He said, how long have you been an executive coach? Sorry, I tried the American accent. I don't know. If it's try. He said, how long have you been an executive coach? And I said, I'm not a coach. I'm a psychologist, and I work also in business with people. And he said, well, just, I heard about you from this executive team that you were working with, and just tell me, how do you work? Explain how you work. And I explained to him how I worked, and then he listened for a couple of minutes, and then he said, well, that is coaching. We are happy that we can call that coaching. I said, well, that's good for you, but what is this about? He said, well, unfortunately, one of the executives in the team is looking for a coach, and we are working from America globally with this company, and we cannot find a coach in his city. At that time, it was Cape Town in South Africa, although I live in London and I'm based in London, but 20 years ago, I was living in Cape Town, South Africa. And we cannot find any coaches there that he likes, and we could only find 2 or 3 anyway. But he said that he met you in the executive team, and you should please consider coaching him. So I said, well, I don't know, what does this involve? And we discussed how it would work. And I said, all right, I would consider it. And then he said to me, I have to apologize. Please, I have to apologize up front, because we cannot pay you the same rate that we pay in the United States. And we will have to pay you a lot less. Mm. So I started to think, I'm going to get a very low price here, and do I really want to do it for so little? And then he told me, he said, so we will only pay you, and he gave me the amount. And the amount that he said was 5 times the rate that I charged for psychotherapy for my clients per hour. 5 times. And he was apologizing. He was apologizing for this rate. And so lucky in those days, there was no Zoom or FaceTime. He couldn't see my face. You see, it was very important that he couldn't see my face, because I went, okay. And I went from that phone call, I went to my computer and I had a letterhead, and it used to be a software program called WordPerfect. Maybe some of you remember WordPerfect. I went on the letterhead and it said Marc Kahn, and it said clinical psychologist, business psychologist, mediation, facilitation, and then underneath I typed executive coach. And this is how I became executive coach.
I see, Marc. That's so funny. It's incredible. So yes, I believe that you were quite surprised, because actually wages in the corporate world are much higher than between non-private. It's quite different. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think, Barbara, the reason I tell the story is when I come to the book, you see, I wrote the book many years later. 2014 it was published, but I wrote it about 10 years later, because from about 2001 to about 2010, I realized that there was something very wrong with what I accepted there. Mm-hmm. I realized that what was really happening in the world of coaching was that a lot of coaching that was happening in the world was coaching like I was doing, was actually a form of counseling, one-on-one counseling, mm-hmm. but it wasn't called counseling, it was called coaching, and it was charged for 5 times more expensive for very similar kind of engagement. And because it was called coaching, it was okay. Mm-hmm. And actually, when I started to understand this important point, I started to investigate it. And I published a journal article about it, in which I discovered over some years that business coaching, or coaching in the context of business, is unique and distinct from counseling and life coaching. Mm-hmm. And that there is an unconscious bias. There is a mistake that is happening in the world of coaching, in which we are delivering counseling services in the world of work, calling it coaching and charging huge amounts of money, just like I did. Mm-hmm. So the reason that I know this was happening is because I did it myself. And then I was very early in the coaching industry, and I was involved in the creation of many different organizations in the world. And I started to see that many of my colleagues around the world, we were all doing the same thing, and no one was calling it out.
So, Marc, this is very interesting for us, because as business coaches, you know that Italy is a market that is a few years later in comparison with the UK and the USA market in coaching. We have been a little late in adopting business coaching. So these reflections that you made are very helpful to us.
Thank you, Barbara. Well, so on that note, Barbara, this slide I'm going to show now will identify the 3 key mistakes that I made in those mm-hmm. early years, which many people were making, and many people today are still making, because they are delivering counseling or life coaching into the business world, and they are selling it as business coaching. And there are 3 problems with this, and mm-hmm. or failures. I call them failures. And these are the 3. Okay, so these are the 3 that are on the screen now. Let's deal with each one at a time. Okay, so the first mistake that I made, and that people are making, which the book really unpacks this error, is that coaches have a bias. They have a bias toward the individual. over the organization. They put the individual they are working with, the coachee, first and the organization second. Like primary client, secondary client. This is a mistake because it is a bias that is related to the medical model. In the medical model, the individual is primary and other people are secondary. However, in the world of work, this is not the case. It is also not true that the organization is first and the individual is second. This is also wrong. In the world of work, we are dealing with complexity. And in the complexity, we have a duality of client. Duality is two that is the same. There is an equal weight of the individual as to the organization, and the coach working in business needs to balance equal consideration. Let me give a simple example. Individual counseling versus marital counseling. In individual counseling, if you are dealing with, say, a husband or a wife, but it's individual, the feelings and thoughts and needs of the other person are secondary, not primary. If you are dealing in marital counseling, is it the husband or the wife which is your primary client? Which is your primary client? Clearly, the answer is both are equally your client, and you are working with the relationship, the duality, the system of that multiple client reality. That is what you are coaching. This bias to the individual is a big, big failure of coaches who sit in session after session of business coaching next to a pot plant and a clock and a box of tissues and the bookshelf with the books. You decide what's there, and effectively it's like a one-on-one dialogue, and then it's the organization is everywhere else. Rather than understanding, we are coaching the whole. And just to be clear, it doesn't mean that you can't coach one-on-one in business coaching. You can, absolutely you can, but you are working with one-on-one in view of an equal and balanced understanding of that individual within the organizational system. And it's very easy to make this mistake. So that is the first error that I made. So the second mistake or failure that I made and that I see people making and is in the book is explained is the theoretical focus. Coaches use theory based very heavily in individual psychology, and they are not using theory that is based in the culture of organizations, the culture of work, the culture of commerce, the culture of business, which is organizational and cultural theory and commercial theory. And if you look at the training, and I've been teaching on many coaching trainings over many years, all over the world. I've been teaching at universities, I've sit on faculty things, and I see the same problem. If you learn to be a coach, if you were to count the amount of hours and all the textbooks that you learn about individual psychology on how to coach, and you counted them, and then you counted all the theory that you are taught about organizational psychology, organizational systems, commerce, cultural theory, organizational culture, you will find sometimes it's 90-10, sometimes it's 80-20. If you're lucky, it's 70-30. Then you're in an excellent course, excellent. And really, this is a mistake. Now, let me say, it is very good to learn individual psychology, Gestalt, psychodynamic, CBT, narrative. You can learn it all. I'm a clinical psychologist. I think it is excellent to learn it. I am not saying you shouldn't learn this. Learn as much as you can. Excellent. But do not fail to balance your understanding theoretically in the theory of organizations, the theory of business, the theory of work, and organizational culture, because this is equally important. And that creates a mistake of defaulting into the individual psychology. So mistake one was you saw only the individual, not the system. Mistake two, your theory that you use, the theory looks inside the individual and not the system. Okay? And it causes a lot of problems. Okay, we'll pause. So the third and final point, because the rest of what I'm going to say is just to explain these 3 points. So if you just get these 3 points and nothing else, excellent. The third point is the most important, because the first and the second, you can learn what you need to learn. You can learn how to work with the duality of client. Someone can show you how. You can read the book, you can do a course. The second one, the same, you can inform yourself. But the third one is a big mistake, because it's your mindset. It is the way that you think or the way that you organize in your head. And I have seen a lot of problems with this one, even with people who have read my book, come to my seminars, gone to other people's who also work like this, like Peter Hawkins. There are many of us that teach this. I'm not the only one. And they still make the mistake. Why? Because of this third one. In their mind, they are still in the mindset of health and well-being. They believe that their purpose is to bring about health and or well-being as the primary purpose of coaching in the world of work. I'm not talking about life coaching. Please hear me. My book is not about life coaching. My book is only about coaching when there is work involved in it. And the mistake there is that people have to shift their mindset from an underlying purpose of health and well-being to a focus on value creation. The reason, the raison d'etre, the primary reason for doing this is value creation, not meaning, purpose, health, and well-being. This is not to say that meaning, purpose, health, and well-being is not very important in business coaching. It is. But it is not the reason you are doing it. The reason a company is paying is because the company believes that will increase the value creation of that individual or that team or the company. Not that it believes you are going to make the person more psychologically sophisticated or happy. If the primary reason, now please hear, if the primary reason the company is paying you is to increase the emotional well-being of a person, this is not business coaching. This is life coaching that the company is happy to pay for. And many companies are happy to pay for that, and that is great. But it is not business coaching. It is life coaching, well-being, and many companies have a budget of certain amount of money which they commit to the well-being of their staff. Is excellent, but don't call it business coaching unless it is focused on value creation, because that's the reason for being of business. Even if it's not a capitalist business, it could be a church, it could be a school, it could be a government organization. There is value creation. If it's a church, it would be that the congregation is getting bigger and more strong. If it is government, then services will be delivered to the community better. You understand? It's not just about profit. Value is about creating value of whatever the organization is doing.
That's very interesting, Mark, because as long as we propose business coaching, the organizational perspective, the perspective of value creation for the company, for the ONG or whatever, is so important. And this, I think, is really the main mind shift that we need to do from whatever part we come, because there are people who come from the business arena and they become coaches and they have this perspective inside themselves because maybe they have been managers or whatever. But there are people that come from the psychological and counseling arena, and then it's a little more difficult for them to adopt the other perspective. Both.
I mean, it's an interesting point you make there, Barbara. Funny thing is, in the last 20 years, I have seen even people who weren't necessarily from healthcare. They came from business and maybe they retired or they left business and became a coach. They themselves can make this mistake. So it's just an interesting thing that it doesn't seem to be just the people coming from healthcare that make this error number 3. People from the business world leave. They train as a coach, they train in the individual model, individual psychology, and they develop this mindset around purpose and well-being. And one of the common reasons for that, and maybe it's a little bit ironic, is that people sometimes leave the world of work to find meaning because they don't find meaning in their work. And then they're in their work, they get a coach, the coach makes all these mistakes, and they start to focus on well-being and meaning and purpose. They fail to link it, axis. The axis is the link to value creation. And the person says, you know what? I would like to leave my job. I also want to be a coach every day to talk about meaning. This is wonderful. Let me leave. Where did you train? I will go and do that course. It's happened many, many times. It's many times like this, which is very unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I will say about this value creation is you'll see it says there, relational mindset. Relational mindset. This is different from a remedial mindset. What does remedial mean? In healthcare, we are trying to fix someone who is sick, someone who is suffering. We're trying to heal the suffering, to make them better, because there is something that is not right with them. This is another big mistake. In business coaching, we are not there to fix somebody, to heal somebody, to take away their suffering, to make them better because they are broken. We are there to build a better relationship, to increase value creation. And this is the problem when coaches are brought in a remedial way. And there's a lot of problems that come from that.
There's a question in which Federico asks if he got that also people coming from a business background, if they adopt a psychological thinking when they become coaches, probably because they are not happy with what they have been living in the business context. So they try to find meaning in coaching, a different meaning. So that is exactly what you were saying, Marc. Am I right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Perfecto.
Very, very good. So what is business coaching, Marc, in the essence?
So, there we go. So exactly as you say, Barbara, how are we all for time? How many minutes still?
You have half an hour, more or less, yes.
Okay. So to understand where this is coming from, it's not my opinion. Let's go to the definition of coaching. And if we look at coaching, we see that generally there are a lot of definitions of coaching generally. So we are asking, what is a specific definition of business coaching? When we say business coaching, we mean all the coaching that is associated with work. Any kind of work, as I said, doesn't have to be profit-making work. Can be in government, can be in religion, can be in schools, can be anything. Right? But where it's work and there is organizing to create an outcome of value for some kind of task. So leadership coaching, coaching for change, team, all this kind of coaching is business coaching. Okay, it's like a big thing. So let's go to the oldest association in the world that is focused on just business coaching. So if you look at ICF or EMCC or any of these other organizations, which are all excellent, they talk about coaching generally, any kind of coaching, and they include life coaching together with it, based in an idea that coaching is like a technique. And if you put the technique on just an individual, it's life coaching. If you put the technique of coaching in business, it's business coaching. Okay, this is a little bit of a problem to think about it this way, because it is focusing on coaching is some kind of dialogue technique. That's like saying a surgeon, a doctor, a surgeon must know how to use a scalpel very well to cut. It's true. This is very true. But it's very important if the surgeon is cutting a human being and understands the human being and what he or she is cutting, or whether the surgeon is cutting a donkey or whether the surgeon is cutting a cardboard box. this is more important than how good they are at cutting. They need to be good. They must be good. But that's not what it is. Okay. So when we understand where are we delivering the coaching, it defines what we are doing. And the Worldwide Association of Business Coaches have this definition. Now, this is their definition from 2007, but actually they've changed it since then. I don't know why. I told the president, don't change it. It's not, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But he didn't listen to me. Okay, because this is beautiful. There's nothing wrong with it. What is business coaching? A process of engaging in meaningful communication. That's the sort of dialogue that we talk about, that everyone trains in. The GROW model, the CLEAR model, the ACHIEVE model, all these models, okay? Incisive questioning, dialogue, reframing, empathy, reflection. Okay, wonderful, very meaningful. But with individuals, look with an S, individuals. That can be one, can be many. In businesses, organizations, institutions, or governments, any kind of organization, with the goal of, and this is the most important piece coming now. Why? What is the goal? Promote success at all levels of the organization by affecting the actions of those individuals. Think how complex that idea is. It's a very complex piece of language. Unfortunately, in English, I'm sorry. But the idea that you are promoting success of the individual is not actually what it is saying. You're promoting success of the organization by promoting success of the individual. You're promoting success of the organization by promoting success of the individual. This is a systemic idea, a complex idea. This is why the book is called Coaching on the Axis. The axis is the connection point. Working with complexity. And this is a very complex idea. It's systemic. And that's business coaching. Very, very different to life coaching. Okay, I will pause there.
Yeah, that's great, Mark. And this systemic idea is so important now. I was stressing this in the introduction because you need to have different levels of understanding of what's going on. The individual is just one unit of analysis, but the relationship are those things that make the system work. So we focus on relationship when we are making business coaching interventions, even in team coaching, of course.
Absolutely. So this, as you say, systemic, you use the word systemic now, systems theory, brings us to a very important question, which the book answers. The book answers a few questions. It says, okay, if we are making these mistakes, what should we be doing? How should we do it? So the first thing is, the way you should do it is you should work systemically. And this means you have to answer the question, who is your client? If you are coaching, who is your client? And I pulled out here from 2009. It's old research now, but it's extensive research. 28,000 employees were in this research paper, 10 industries on 3 continents. Very big piece of research done by Right Management. And they conclude business coaching needs to be regarded not only as an individual event, but also an organizational process driving systemic change. That statement is the same statement as this definition. It's the same thing, okay? And I give this picture of systemic realities that you might be coaching just the individual, this little where it says individual, that may be your individual coachee, but that person is inside a team, inside of a department, inside of an organization, inside of a market. And these things are all entangled together, and you need to be working systemically. And the book unpacks how to do that, okay? So one of the images that I like to use to illustrate this is I use Hala Brunning's diagram from her book in 2006, but I added a few things, including the Smurfs. I hope you like the Smurfs. Do you get the Smurfs in Italy? Okay.
Nani, I puffi.
Is that what they're called?
Puffi.
Puffy.
You have grande puffo.
This is grande puffo.
And then puffetta, which is the female. We have everyone.
There she is. Okay, excellent. I have 4 children, so we like this. So this is your client, grande. What's it? Grande puffy.
Grande puffo.
Great.
Puffo.
Yes.
Grande puffo is your client. But he is here, but he is also on this side. He is in both places. When you are engaging and talking with him as a coachee in the dialogue, sometimes when he is speaking as the individual. If you listen carefully, this is him as an individual speaking. I am experiencing this. Other times he will be speaking as the organization. He will say, we believe in this. We do this. This is what is happening. The organization is talking through him. Sometimes the individual is talking through him. So even in an individual dialogue, if you can listen carefully and you know how, you can be listening to the person and the organization coming from the same individual. This is a technique to understand. Also, other people, when they speak about grande
Puffo.
grande puffo, they can be talking as an individual, telling you about their experience of him, but they can also be speaking as the organization, telling you about him, and they can also be speaking as them as an individual, their experience in the organization. And it's not even about him, but they make it about him. And so you realize there is this interaction happening deep in each dialogue. And what you're trying to do, which is why it's called an axis, is the book doesn't tell you, Coaching on the Axis doesn't tell you how to coach. You can coach using whatever model you have trained in. There are many ways to coach, many models. They are excellent. All of them are excellent. It's more, how good are you at it? And so that's great. You can use your method. It tells you where to coach. Let me say
Marc,
that. It doesn't
here,
tell you how, it tells you where.
Let me ask you a question that is very interesting. Fabio was asking this. When we perceive during a business coaching session a conflict between coachee and the organization, what do we have to do? Do you mean that we have to balance our behavior and questions towards the coachee, having in mind mainly the organizational impact? What do we have to do where we perceive a conflict, a relation of conflict?
Excellent question. So you see, this is, let me give it as an example. The focus of good business coaching is always on the relationship, the quality of the relationship between the individual and the organization. Because depending on how the organization and the individual come together, this determines success. So the coaching dialogue is not about what's happening inside me, the coachee, only. It is really about who I am and how the organization is, how it comes together successfully or unsuccessfully to create value. This is the work of the conversation. This is the purpose of the coaching conversation. And so when you discover a conflict between them, this is good news. Why is it good news? Because that shows you right away that there is an area where the coaching must come to improve the relationship, because where there is conflict, it is likely to be reducing value creation. Let's use a simple example, an easy one. Commonly, people might come to the coach and they say, you know, I would like to have more work-life balance. And I would like to reduce the amount of hours that I work in my team. Can you coach me on how I can discuss this with my manager to work from 5 days a week to 3 days a week? Let's do some code. Please help me with coaching on how to persuade my manager to allow me to do this, because you can see how important work-life balance is. Now, if you fail to understand the duality of clients and the theoretical focus, and you are stuck in a health and well-being mindset, you will then begin to work with this person on how to do the conversation to get what they need, which is a 3-day week, because it's good for their mental health and their life. And you can do some role playing and different ways of having the conversation, and then they can try it and come back. Fail, 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 fail. Not business coaching. That's life coaching. Why? Why? Let's look at how I would suggest you do it as a business coach. You see, the question is not, how can the coaching help me persuade my manager to get to do 3 out of 5 days? The question is, how is my need to go to 3 out of 5 days going to relate to the organizational need in the team to deliver its objectives? And I have a need to go 3 out of 5 days. The organization has a need to deliver whatever services it delivers. Let's say it sells shoes, to sell many shoes. My need and the organizational need must find a way to come together where both interests are considered equally important. Equally important. So therefore, the coaching question back to the individual, not life coach, business coach, is the first question is, how does your need to go to 3 out of 5 days, how do you think it will affect value creation for the team that you work in?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a reflexive question. That's the tech, reflect. It's getting the person to think about the consequences of their need on the business outcome. So it's an incisive question for them to consider it. Through the process of considering the effect on the outcomes of the business, the person can develop their approach, the way they will have the conversation with their manager. Imagine how different it is that they go to the manager now and they say, I've thought carefully about how important it is that we sell so many shoes. This is our objective. And I'm also wanting to reduce to 3 days out of 5. I've thought about both. I think there can be a way that it's possible maybe I can reduce, but still achieve those objectives that I'm committed to. And I've thought about how maybe this is possible. I would like to discuss with you and see if it is possible. Totally different way of engaging in it.
Okay, Marc, here a question arises that is very important because Katerina asks, the most important thing is to discuss the objectives of the coaching together with the boss or the HR and the coachee. So there is this foundation moment that is crucial for what you're saying.
Absolutely perfecto. Exactly right. In the book, we talk about contracting. And there is a lot in the book about how you contract in a different way when you work in business coaching to other forms, to counseling or to life coaching or other things. Contracting is essential because if you fail to contract in the right way, people will assume you are doing counseling, even legally. There was a court case in the United States in which the contract was not clear that it was business coaching, and the court ruled when there was a complaint that in the absence of a contract that describes it as business coaching, it would be reasonable for a person to assume that they were in counseling because this coaching thing, according to the court, is so similar to counseling. Unless you contract carefully, people will assume that the same rules apply. And there's a big piece in the book about this. So contracting is key, absolutely key. In fact, I have a slide about this. Look, I don't think I will be able to get through all the slides, but yes, that is very, very important and an important part of not making these mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that. You know, I think that the business coaching culture in Italy has to learn a lot from the experiences of other countries where different models have been applied since a long time. So this is really something that is the focus on results, on value for business, that is very clear for a businessman. It's not so obvious for coaches, I think, if I can say. It's not so obvious because, of course, but we are, I saw that you were projecting the slide of the business culture. I really loved in your book when you compared different cultures, and this is something that we have to learn.
Yes, absolutely. So that's, as you say, in this slide here, I talk about, you know, changing the orientation. You may have come across Jonathan Passmore's work. You know, already in 2007, he was saying in his work, many coaching offerings have tended to be effective conversions from established psychotherapeutic approaches. What does that mean? Basically means we took counseling technique, therapy technique, we changed some of the words and we called it coaching. This is what has happened. In fact, if you pick up some coaching textbooks today, it's basically psychology textbooks, but they talk about Gestalt coaching, narrative coaching, psychodynamic coaching. You know, come on. Let's be honest. Okay. Mea culpa. I'm guilty. I do the same thing. So that's very important to understand. We're not in a therapy room. We are in the world of work. And that is a very, very big problem in coaching today around the world. I see it in coaches in Australia, in Europe, in America, in Africa, in Asia. Coaches are in the therapy room in their head. They're not in the world of work in their head. And they don't even realize, even coaches who come from the business world. Okay. So one of the reasons that this is a big mistake happening is because of culture. Now, when we look at the culture of business or the world of work, call it work, culture of work. Culture of work is value creation and service delivery, creating something valuable that other people need or want, or providing a service to people that they need or want. And the theory that underwrites that is organizational. It's all about how to organize people to come together in a company, in the company of each other, to be in each other's company, to add their energy to deliver value and services. This is the culture. The culture in counseling is about meaning and well-being, being healthy, mentally and physically healthy and well, but also finding meaning in life. This is the purpose of it. And it is all focused on the individual. Me, the individual, what I need. These two cultural ideologies are not the same. They are not the same. However, they are linked. And the mistake is to make the one the purpose when you are delivering a contract for the other. And that's what's happening, this mistake. We agree a contract with a company, and what we deliver is meaning or well-being at an individual level when the company is expecting us to do something, maybe that's connected to meaning and well-being, but ultimately its purpose is to increase value or deliver services. And the axis or the connection between them is not strong enough. In fact, in most cases, it is not even there. And I will give you an example. The assumption that if you improve meaning and well-being in a person, they will work better and deliver more value and be better at delivering services to customers is not proved. It is not proved. I'll say it again, because many people, they have to think 2 or 3 times to catch this one. Okay. The idea that if you increase a person's sense of meaning or increase their well-being, they will sell more shoes is not necessarily true. In fact, it is possible that if you increase their well-being and their meaning in their life, they may even sell less shoes. It's possible. Also, it's possible they will sell more shoes. Maybe they will sell more shoes. But you cannot assume that it will be like that. You must find the connection and be sure that this is going to result in selling more shoes, because the company is paying you because they believe it will sell more shoes. And if you haven't got a connection between them and access, you are in breach of your contract. You are unethical. It's an ethical mistake. Very ironic, because most people believe that how can it be unethical to focus on meaning and well-being? Surely any time that I do that, doesn't matter what, is ethical. No, it's not. Not if you're being paid to do something that improves value creation and service delivery, and you're not linking it properly. That's unethical.
Yeah, Federico is commenting that probably she or he will leave the shoes company.
And become a coach. And become a coach.
And become a coach himself, because he wants to find some meaning in his life. But let me comment, there was a point in your book, Marc, where you talked about pathology-based coaching orientation, a coaching that is based on pathology. And I found it so interesting that you talked about this. It's not about fixing a bad individual and that's it, but it's not as well to fix a broken organization. I love that concept.
Thank you. Yes, exactly right. That is the relational mindset based value creation. The whole idea is that a remedial orientation, which comes from healthcare, means the coach comes and either usually the company says there's something wrong with this person. They're too angry, or they don't listen, or whatever it is, or they don't think the right way. There's something not right with them. You must coach them to fix them. Mistake. That's a mistake one. Similarly, and many of you that are coaching will realize this is true, many times you are coaching the individual and the individual is telling you the company is sick. The company is toxic. The company is bad. And I am good. What can I do with this bad company? And then you sit as the coach and you think, yeah, this company is terrible the way both are mistake. No bad company and no bad individual. It's like the husband telling you the wife is bad. Then the wife comes and the wife tells you the husband is bad. Now you're confused. Who's bad here? What you realize is neither of them are bad. They're both fine, but their relationship is having a problem. And they tell you that by saying the other one is bad. And this is a mistake that coaches make. If you look at all the coaching you're doing, I will take you a bet. I will bet you €20 cash right now that at least half of the people that you are coaching are complaining about their boss.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. I can't confirm from my coaching practice that this is a conservative figure.
Bad boss.
Bad boss, absolutely.
Bad. And my life would be great and the company would be great if the boss wasn't bad. Mm-hmm. You would think that there are bad bosses everywhere. Until one day you coach the boss comes to you for coaching. The bad boss comes to you later for coaching. What does he or she tell you?
Mm-hmm.
They tell you the problem is their boss.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other boss comes, their boss. Everyone tells you the boss is bad, okay? At least half the time. Again, an error.
Yeah, that's right. And I remember a case that we discussed in a group that we are holding now as an intervision group. And this case arose exactly. And the problem was that there were more than one stakeholder, because there was the boss is bad, but the boss of the boss is very good, you know. So
which is, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
If only the boss's boss could be my boss.
Mm-hmm.
You see, all these are fantasies. Now, it's not to say that there are not bad bosses. Yes, there are bad bosses, of course. And there are also bad individuals. But it's not about good or bad. Soon as you get into the good or bad and you move away from the relationship, and the way that the relationship is creating a problem for value creation or not, it's developed. So I often say, when I'm supervising, I do a lot of supervision, people say to me, the coachee complains about the boss all the time. What should I do as a coach? And the first thing I say is, have you asked the following questions? Did you ask, how does this negative perception of your boss affect value creation? How does it affect the job? How does the relationship with your boss change or disable the ability to sell shoes? And let's start to think along those lines. Not, he's a good person, he's a bad person. This is irrelevant. What is relevant is how it is affecting the organizational function. And soon as one starts to ask questions like this, there's a whole way to do this. It's not just one question. It opens up the possibility for engagement, because we move away from the assumption that at work, I'm supposed to be in a family where people love each other and everyone's nice and where there's these good people. At work, you didn't choose him as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
He's not necessarily a friend. Maybe sometimes it can be a friend. You are there for a purpose, and to focus on that can create options, expose a lot of options that were not there before because you were so stuck in really not liking this person. You know? So, okay, this is another whole seminar.
That's very interesting, Mark. And this combines very, very, very well with a thing that I read on your book that I really, it gave me a great insight, is the thing that we have to balance the perception about organization and individual and maintain an unconditional positive regard for both. That's really something that reminds me of Rogers, but in this case it's very interesting how you apply this to business coaching.
Thank you very much for saying that. Not many people appreciate this. Appreciate this point that you have found, and I'm very happy that you got that, because it is like that. Some people think about my work that I am very commercial. I'm very hard. I'm not caring, and it's ironic that it's the other way. I believe I give positive regard, unconditional positive regard, to both the individual and the organization, to everybody. I don't want to pathologize anyone. And interestingly enough, people who are coming from more of a counseling approach, they don't realize it, but they sometimes make a mistake and they see illness, they see badness in spaces and places, like pathology. And it closes down possibilities for moving forward, for solutions. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So in the end, what you have is you have the individual, you have the environment, and what you're trying to understand is the coaching relationship is, how does the environment and the individual come together, connect together? Okay. That's the axis. It's coaching on the axis. In the title of the book, the most important word in coaching on the axis is the word on. On, because it's where you are coaching. It's locating your focus. It's not telling you how to coach, it's telling you where to coach. Okay, so just quickly, I will just say, so then what you do is how do you access the environment? How do you access the individual? How do you access the relationship? So starting with the environment, many coaches are not trained in how to understand the system. They work with the individual, but we're trying to understand what is the individual holding for that system. Okay? And there are many questions you can ask. Here are some of the questions to ask to open that up. How do things work in this environment? Okay? How do people win or lose in the environment? Okay? What does no one tell you, but you know if you work here that you should always do this and you should never do that? These types of questions. And my favorite one is the last one. How do decisions really get made? And you have to say, how do decisions really get made? You know, like how it actually happens, not what it says in the manual. These are the kinds of questions that coaches need to be asking all the time to try to understand the system within which that individual is working. And
Marc, with this regard, I think that people who have actual experience of large organizations, they have this embedded because they have lived it with their first-hand experience. So they understand what the system is because they have lived inside. For example, people who have only experience of individual practice, it's really hard for them to understand this because they don't have the actual experience of having been in a large organization with so many ties and so many relationships.
Yeah, it can be very valuable to have experience being in an organization and lived in it to know what it's like to be in that. It can be very helpful indeed. This is an example of a relational map that I drew with a client. With the client's name is Brian, and then he puts all the people he is working with around him, and he started to rate the relationships out of 10, which relationships were strong and which were not strong and why. And we started to think about this together on this map. And in my book, I teach this technique you can use to open up the relational map, to start to see how things are unfolding in a one-on-one dialogue. Okay, and so feedback becomes very important. And working with feedback inside an organization as a business coach is the most useful data point, because feedback in a system is the way that the system self-organizes and creates homeostasis as an organization. And if you're working just one-on-one and you're not working with feedback, you're really in a vacuum. You're apart or stuck, you're away from what's really going on. And you back into that bias for the individual. So there's a whole piece in the book on working with feedback and how to work with feedback as a business coach, which is very, very powerful approach to this. Now, when we look at the individual, most people who have done coaching, in fact, everybody who's done coaching is good at this. They know from coaching individual, who am I, where am I, what I want to be, my past. This is very important. All the technique that you learned about accessing the individual story. I don't have to talk a lot about this because I'm sure that you know this well. And this is really like how the history and the culture of this person and the personal reality that she has and the way that she sees the world, she's your coachee, and all the aspects of it are affecting the outcomes that you seek to achieve. So you have the environment. Now you are asking the individual, and then you want to see how they come together, the individual and the environment. What does coaching do? It brings the individual and the environment into dialogue in a way that promotes alignment, integration, and performance. It comes from the desire of the environment, which is the organization, and the individual to live in an improved state of relationship, because that improved state of relationship is defined by increased value creation. Like an example here is, please come and coach this person. And you ask them, they say, I need to move from a management mindset to more of a leadership mindset. I was more operational. Now I need to be more strategic. This type of request or brief, very common. As you can see, this is a call to relationship. It's a new state of relationship. It's not to say change the person. This is a mistake to see this as change the person. It's a change in the relationship. It's saying you were in a relationship in which this was how you related. You related to each other more for as a manager, operational. Now our relationship has changed and we more are about influencing each other, and we think and talk differently. There's a new relationship. And how can we come together in this relationship in a different kind of way? It's a different way of thinking about it. And you get the individual environment, the coaching relationship, and bada bing, bada boom, finished.
Finished. Oh, I see. That's so interesting, Marc. It's great. And I think that a few cases that we have been discussing lately really have you gave us great insights on how to treat them, how to consider them, how to make them evolve, because this concentration on value creation is such a wonderful guide, I think, for all of us, and it's very clear. I saw that Luca was willing to say something. Probably I saw Luca, and now I'm asking if you wanted to add something, Luca. Thank you for inviting Marc. Thank you for creating this wonderful connection and this wonderful relationship. We cannot hear you. Sorry, Luca.
I just want to thank you, Marc, because every time I hear him speaking, I have a mirror effect. And there are not so many persons speaking the language of the axis of the duality of coaching.
Yeah, that's it. But Luca, now we have the chance to deepen this knowledge, and I would like to ask Marc if he can kindly stop his screen sharing, because Federica is there, and together we may show what we are going to do. We are going to make something to give people a more deep understanding of what we are talking about. And Federica, can you show us what we asked Marc of doing for our wonderful people here?
Sì, certo, grazie Barbara. Chiaramente, Marc, I'm sorry, I will do it in Italian since you know what it is. E quindi anch'io chiaramente ringrazio Marc. È sempre molto interessante sentirlo. Come molti di voi che hanno partecipato ai nostri corsi di formazione avrete riconosciuto alcuni dei concetti ai quali noi ci ispiriamo in realtà moltissimo e da sempre. Il suo è uno dei primi libri che ci siamo lette appena è stato pubblicato, e chiaramente è stato un'ispirazione da sempre. In questo senso abbiamo però colto la disponibilità di Marc di lavorare un po' con noi, e quindi quello che vi volevamo un po' introdurre è un percorso che a brevissimo inizieremo a presentare anche ad un pubblico più allargato. Inizialmente lo avevamo pensato solo per gli alunni della nostra scuola, ma poi ci siamo resi conto che l'approccio che propone Marc è sicuramente estremamente utile anche per chi provenisse da altri percorsi. E quindi abbiamo individuato 5 argomenti sui quali nei prossimi mesi, agli inizi del 2021, ci soffermeremo con lui a riflettere in una modalità di cooperative learning. Marc ci tiene molto a non essere considerato un guru lontano e inaccessibile, ma anzi a stimolare quella che può essere lo scambio, la condivisione. Quindi abbiamo immaginato questi 5 argomenti con una cadenza di una volta al mese, in una modalità forse immaginiamo facile, perché online di 2 ore e il martedì, quindi dalle 6:30 alle 8:30, che è un orario compatibile anche con il fuso orario di Marc, che lo vede un'ora prima in quanto a Londra. Chiaramente sarà possibile partecipare o a tutto il track, quindi a tutti e 5 i momenti seminariali, o anche a uno di questi soltanto. Ve lo anticipiamo per voi che siete qui oggi, chiaramente poi per chi avesse voglia di avere informazioni siamo sempre a disposizione, probabilmente a breve riceverete delle indicazioni, ma come vedete oggi abbiamo avuto l'opportunità di, come dire, avere un po' di stimoli. Chiaramente la cosa più interessante sarebbe anche di confrontarci sulle nostre pratiche, e infatti questi seminari prevederanno un doppio momento, quindi un'introduzione e uno stimolo da parte di Marc, la possibilità poi di fare un sharing all'interno di sottogruppi di lavoro, proprio perché chi parteciperà a queste edizioni sarà sicuramente una persona che può avere o alle spalle un'esperienza di coaching in quanto provider, o al contrario, in molti si sono affacciati a questa curiosità, persone appartenenti all'organizzazione, quindi persone che invece vedono il coaching lato esigenza organizzativa. Quindi ecco, solo come accenno, prima
Yeah,
di...
Federica and Marc, would you like to add something from what Federica said? Here we have 5 fascinating concepts that we want to deal about. Would you like to tell us something about each different one?
Okay, yes. So I think what we try to do, Federica, I didn't understand what you said, so please forgive me if I repeat something. But,
Marc!
but essentially we try to break up into pieces some important components of my work, all of which one can find in the book, but we try to unpack it a little bit. So what I hope to do is, in these 5 components, particularly the first 3, is to really give examples of how to do it. Like I gave the example with work-life balance now, and how to ask the questions differently. Really get into how with some questions to respond to. So the first one is more general around what we discussed this evening, but obviously in now really getting into it now in more detail. The second one, we're going to focus very clearly on a multiple client reality, because that's really, as I said, a very big change. How to work. How can you work with many clients that you have to work with equally? They have, not where you put the one in front of the other. And all the difficulty of doing that, it's like walking a tightrope. Like the people that carry that pole and they balance and they walk on that tightrope. And you have to be concentrating and balancing all the time. It's actually much easier just to work with the individual, because the boundaries are very clear and easy. Complex boundaries are more difficult. So we will really get into how to do that. And then the third one, which I mentioned this evening, is about feedback. And feedback is very important. There's a section in the book on working with open feedback, which is how do you work with feedback, like 360s and things like that. It's not as simple as it sounds, working systemically. Not like you just collect the information, then put it inside the individual and discuss it. That's a mistake. The fourth one, we're going to focus on working with the team as the client, a functional team as the client, okay? Coaching teams. So where it's clear that the team itself is the case. And then the last one is the notion of the scientist practitioner. And the scientist practitioner is a very important idea, because really as a coach, you are not an academic, but you are also not only a practitioner. You are both. You are learning theoretically. There's an academic component to your learning, but you are working. And how are you actually both at the same time? And this is I think quite an important and new idea that has come about, and it was developed before me. I just referenced it a lot of the time. So this is some of the things, but we'll try to make it practical. Each interface will be practical.
I see, Marc. That's great, and we are so grateful that you had this time for us. And I am sure that we will be very interested in participating and animating these interesting conversations, because for my part, I have so many questions, and really I would like to talk to you and deepen my knowledge of what's inside each of these parts, because there is a lot to learn. As you said, in the realm of business coaching, we have a lot to learn, because also the knowledge comes from so many different angles, and it's not easy. We are used to a situation in which we have partitioned our knowledge, and we have some silos of knowledge, and to put this all together is really something that can be of use to everybody. Here I am receiving a lot of feedback, thanking you for your speech, and everybody is saying really powerful. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to everybody. Thank you for the suggestions. So we are so grateful, and we really love to having you here, and we look forward to meeting you for the Think with Marc. I love the title. Thank you, Marc, for letting us think together.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to We Plus Network. Fantastic work that you're doing.
Oh, thank
Merry
you
Christmas
so much.
and Happy New Year. And please, God, COVID will get away.